On the show with Justin, I mentioned that I was struck by something he said. We were talking about workouts, and he said something like, sometimes it isn't your day. And then he mentioned the 30-30-30 thing. If you're lost right now, you can just listen to the show. He explains it well. But what struck me is he just made it sound so doable and realistic. Like some days you won't do a great workout, and that's okay, but then you go again tomorrow. And for me, this brought up kind of a bigger dynamic, that age old struggle for a lot of us. How do you balance cutting yourself some slack with staying accountable to yourself? When you have a goal that you're faltering on, when do you admit that you're making excuses, like, calling bullshit on yourself, versus times when you're having unrealistic expectations or you're just plain being too hard on yourself? And of course, I roll, drum roll, please. The simple answer is honesty. Justin's show was about well being and proper fitness. And I can tell you, I've made 1,000 health goals throughout the years. In fact, last week my partner was out of town, so I was on full drop off duties. And so I fully committed myself to doing my circuit of exercises and stretches every day after dropping the kiddos off at school. But on Monday, I decided to eat breakfast first and then just ran out of time before my workday began. So that was a bust. And then on Tuesday, I was raring to go. I sat down to put my sneakers on, and then I happened to check a text that came in, and I ended up spending my workout time scrolling through Instagram. And then on Wednesday, I had a physical therapy appointment. So I figured, I'll get those exercises in already. So I won't bother doing them today. Now, I could argue that work and breakfast are important too, but I know I'm full of shit. It wasn't that I didn't have time to commit to my goal. I just chose other things to do with that time. Those other things are sometimes legitimate and sometimes not. But this is where I lacked accountability. And at the end of the week, I was frustrated with myself for missing a week of possible progress, but I also sort of wanted to keep justifying it. But accepting that I made unhelpful choices did help me recommit to my goal. This week, I remembered that feeling of frustration from last week, and it did fuel me to be more intentional and fit some stuff in throughout the day. Now, on the other hand, sometimes we're unnecessarily hard on ourselves in situations that truly warrant patience and compassion. For me, I have like 1,000 meetings and sessions a day, and sometimes I book things so back to back that I absolutely could not fit in my exercises even if I tried. So if I set myself up with the expectation that I'll just squeeze them in when clearly I cannot, that would be unrealistic. Or as Justin said, maybe if I was being consistent for the most part with my workout, but on Monday I did a workout and didn't really do a great one. Maybe I kind of half-assed it or it just wasn't at my best. It would be okay to say, hey, it's just not my day, and I shouldn't have to beat myself up for it. This balance, this push-pull of being too easy or too hard on ourselves requires us to be honest, discerning, reasonable. And did I mention honest? So take a moment to think of a goal you have right now. There are times when you're working towards it and times when you aren't. It's important to admit the reasons or excuses for those times that you're putting in less effort. Think about it. We almost never set a goal without some kind of motivation to meet that goal, right? But that motivation can fluctuate, of course, and life gets in the way. And we certainly get in our own way. At least I know I do. You know, on the show, in the moment when Justin was saying that we should cut ourselves some slack, that was very validating for me. That felt comforting. But he basically also said that we have to get back to business sooner rather than later, or we can't expect to get closer to success. And that is also true. So, to end this deep dive, I implore you to start recognizing the times when you're being too easy on yourself and the times you're being too hard on yourself. Because calling balls and strikes with your own behavior is the only way to truly take accountability. So that's it for my deep dive. If you want to hear more about this topic or just talk to us in general, or especially if you want to be a guest, email us at theunrelatingpodcast@gmail.com and interact with us on our socials. We'd love to hear from you.